I'll share that link to whom?
One is shared to Madhu.
Madhu madam will share to everybody. Hello.
academic start ஆச்சுன்னா கரெக்டா அசைன் பண்ணுவாங்களோ?
పెట్టుకుంటారు.
No strange. Hello. Morning, everyone. Hello.
Madam, I made you host.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Yeah. Madam, ask everybody to mute their mic once.
All the participants, please mute yourselves.
Madam, you can start.
Thank you, sir. In the yesterday's session, Vijay Kumar sir has been covering all the topics of React, the fundamental concepts of React, how to create a React app, and what are all the functional components and class components, and what is JSX, and what is props, and what is states. So hooks and a life cycle of the component, how to create it, how it will navigate, and how it will show its functionality of entire rendering and all we have seen yesterday. And Surya Narayana sir has gone through what a single page application is and importance of a single page application is, and why that is very widely used, and because of this rich feature only React is also widely used. So these two topics we have been seeing through. Now today what we will see is React router, which is the actual play for your single page application. So what is React router and how this is beneficial for this entire React.js library, and what are all the different ways to achieve this in order to make your complete web application a single page application. So this is what we will see in the first half session, and in the second half session we will see about React and Redux. So let me share my PPT. I'm sorry. So now that we are familiarized with the basics of how to work with React and all, so let us start with a simple single page application. And this is what we have been talked about mostly in this all these sessions. And we will analyze for little 10 minutes what is the exact difference between this single page application and what is the difference between this previously multi-page loading applications. So if you see, navigating a single page application doesn't involve going to entirely a new page. The exact meaning of any single page application is it doesn't go to a new page. If you observe this, so these are the load views in line rather than loading new page. If you observe this entire page, you can see that these different pages which are inside this single page, okay, they don't actually load each time. So this main difference we will be seeing today practically. And then let me go through the few points of a single page application. The URL which you can see on the top rarely changes. So what that means is, or suppose if we are into some Amazon, let us suppose if I am into Amazon, and let us take the example of Facebook itself because it is built on the technology of React.js. So let us go with Facebook itself. So when we are into the Facebook, we can see that under the pages of your profile page or something, you have different sections, different tabs given. When we load those tabs, when I click something like marketplace or when I navigate to home or something, the entire page you don't see, it is reloading. Only the necessary content is being displayed. This is actually the meaning of single page application. This approach had some consequences, like if you see multi-page applications, what happens is the entire page loads. And when you click the back button also, the browser history is recorded in single URL. You can't share the pieces of pages, and the search engine has to struggle with what is the content about that particular page. So in order to overcome all these things, we have updation in our single page application, and we have our browser URL routing also. Anyone, please, any help you need, sir? Anything you didn't understand or something like that? Okay, let's continue. So in order to understand all these consequences in the multi-page application, we are coming into the single page application concept where we have browser URL routing. So the main aim is to organize our each and every page with the help of browser URL, the URL which we use to reach one particular page. So in that, what happens is your URL routing lets you configure an application to accept what is the URL request you have given physically, or you have been doing it. In the same manner, displays the product information. If you enter inside a product, it will quickly give you the products page. And when you go to a particular product, it will give you its products description page. And you can observe the change in the URL also. So these are some of the browser URLs. And you should understand the importance of hash also, which we will be seeing further. I have just given you a few examples which will avoid the entire page reload. The entire page reload will not happen in such types of URLs. And we are going to see this practically also. Now, if you implement a router from scratch, okay, so it's a simple router. And in order to understand only, we are using this slide. To have 3 pages that cannot change along with this, if you observe this figure, there is a native router, and that native router now proceeds to the profile page, the only profile page. Now what happens is, I have given a hash before this in order to load this profile page, not reloading the entire page. So there are 3 things: home, accounts, and profile. These are 3 pages we wish to navigate. And whenever I use hash and whenever I don't use a hash, there is a difference. And that difference we will be seeing soon in the programming session. The next, this is React Router, and React Router is a package. It itself is a library, and it is a lightweight, fully featured routing library which is supported by React JavaScript also, and it is supported by ECMA also, and as well as ES6 also. Now, what happens is in this, it runs anywhere in your React system, and it connects to React Native also. That point is also there. And, there are 3 repositories in this, and you can use any of them. Either you can go with React Router, or you can go with React Router DOM, or you can go with React Router Native. And we all understand that React Router Native is exclusively for React Native. Sorry. So this is the official page of React Router version 6. You can go through and you can read the document here. You can start your tutorial also from here, not to understand the smallest working of a React Router. And next, if you, I just want to stop my PPT here and show you something practically. Let me go through this.
MS Office opening time.
Participants, I request you all to mute yourselves.
ஓபன் பண்ணிக்கணும் நியூ மைக்ரோசாஃப்ட்.
So this is the official page of React Router. I think I have to switch my share. So just give me one moment. All right, this is the official React Router page. Okay. Now what happens here is you can see how it provides its core functionality. The React Router DOM is also present here. And apart from that, you have React Router Native also for the React Router Native. And you can see how many downloads it takes place. This is the most widely used one. Now let us get through. Now let me show you something practically. So this is the simple React application which we have created with the help of npx. You can see down in the command, we have created this application. Okay. I'm just running it with the help of npm start. And once it happens, now we will be going through how to install our React router initially. Participants, please.
Okay.
I request you all to please mute yourself.
Saturday evening I went. I gave advance and from Saturday onwards.
Madam, you have that option, ma'am. You mute it, ma'am. Most people are not doing.
PG.
Okay, sir, got it.
That's less spicy. That's why I selected that to eat that.
So meanwhile, it is taking time to run this application.
4 or 5 days
I would like to share few points which will help you in understanding this router even more better. So if you take an example, if you take an URL displayed in the address bar, what happens there is
then sir here my room sir no he's staying in the same
all right. That part is done. So meanwhile our application starts. Let us understand what exactly happens. Whenever you load some site, let me get into a normal shopping site. I hope everyone is able to see this. So if I open this page, we can observe that it's being entirely loaded. You can observe it whenever I click something over this application. This is the home page they are showing. And now suppose I click on something like this button, shop woman. It goes very fast, but you can observe it clearly, the entire page being loading. Here if you are able to see the cursor, the entire page is loading whenever I want to enter into some menu or something like that. Now, let us consider the case of Facebook. I don't think so I have logged into the Facebook, but still we can observe the changes happening in the Facebook exactly. So if I say create account, it's entirely built with ReactJS. Here you can observe the page is not being loaded entirely. It just go to the particular form there in exactly loading the particular component needed. So this is the difference of your single page application. Now let us see where we are into running our application in the Visual Studio Code. So it is successfully we are into the application now. Now soon let me create 3 lists needed. Okay. All right. Okay. Just give me one moment. The internet is very slow. I request one of them help me. Are you able to see a simple router program with switch, route and all? Is the screen visible? Can any one of you help me confirming this?
Ma'am, it's visible.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. So this is a simple application. If you observe, it was taking too long to run in the Visual Code, so I switched to this sandbox. So what happens here is, whenever you have a navigation menu, it is your list which you are entering, and so you can find this here. This is the header session which we are rendering
headset
with the help of this one.
Madam, please ask people to mute their microphone.
Yes, I am also suddenly unable to find who is talking. Thank you. So now if you observe, we have created our header with the help of arrow function. This concept was covered yesterday. So this is the manner you create your header with your header tag and with your nav and your UL and LI as usual in your HTML5. So in that, if we observe, we have our LI, which has been given link, and then there is a two word and equal to, and you can find there is a single slash and your menu being written. And after that, you have the similar manner of structure link to, and in that the string is hash roster. Here we can write anything we want, and the same thing has to be written while you are linking in your path also. Okay. And again, for the third li, we can observe the string is slash schedule. So this is the thing, and you can see all these three menus: home, buggy, iframe, schedule here in your output, right? All right, and then we are exporting this default header as usual in order to use this component wherever we want. So now next, go to your home page. You can see how you have written and declared what should come in your home page after your header. All right. And now let's enter into our main.js, where we are importing our home and as well as our roster as well as our schedule, not to use all these three components which we have to display here. All right. Apart from that, you can observe I have imported switch and route also. This particular input can happen only when you install your React router. We have seen the official page of React router. So there you can use the npm command and install the React router. When you're going with React router, follow the React router whatever URL framing package is given. And when you are following React router DOM, please follow those framing things. Now let us suppose we are into this. This is completely pure React router only. It starts with switch. I'm sorry. The switch is one which will help you exactly to understand what exactly is happening in single page application. Now I'll explain you each one of them. And then we have route. Route will help you to create your URL with the path which you need. And there are differences in all these three. So that also we will be seeing. Now, initially, let us understand this clearly. What I have given is the single slash, and here my string is slash router, roster, and then this is slash schedule, right? All right. Now, when you observe the header part, you have been linking to the same strings you can find here. All right. So here in the main.js, inside your route, okay, inside your route which you have imported, you are explaining this. Okay. And can I write this routes, all these 3 routes without switch? Yes, you can write all these 3 routes without switch. But once when I remove my switch, what happens is, let us do that also. Once you remove the switch, you can see all these 3 routes working exactly in the same page only. So now what happens? Now these 3 will act differently. They won't accomplish the actual feature of single page application. So they start acting as 3 different pages. But that is not our goal. Our goal is to achieve the process of single page application where each page loads itself upon the necessitation and not the entire page is loading. And we will also see the differences also between the actual single page application implementing using virtual DOM and the other multi-page applications which you use the DOM itself. So that part also we will be covering. Now let us go to our header.js. Here you can see all these 3 links strings. The same is used here also in your routes. The first route, this statement explains you how to define a path and how to connect it to the particular component you want to view. When I click on home, in the URL, if you see my cursor clearly, in this URL, there is nothing you can observe after the slash, only slash is present. So do you understand now this path which I am directing states that this is the initial page. This is the first page the application has to load. So that's the meaning of this single slash. And now if I go into this buggy iframe, you observe that this string has been given in your header here. And the menu is buggy iframe. And whenever I click this, my URL, come to the URL coding, my URL contains the single slash and roster. So this is the way I define my URL, and which will be very, very helpful in order to understand what that particular page is about. And this will also help in search engine optimization. Now, search engine optimization is a concept where you will enter into your pages and there are few keywords defined about that particular page. So this keywords will help that particular search engine to fetch the page and reproduce while you search. So in such states, when you name this URL correctly, what this page is about, then it will be very easy for a search engine to represent that particular URL itself while you are searching. Now let us suppose I am searching for a particular product, and when I know the product ID, I can directly put in the browser and search that particular ID, and it will fetch exactly not the products page, but the relevant product description page itself. So is it clear? Let us suppose, for example, I am checking for Samsung M2. Then I can directly give that particular product ID. It will show me the black color which I want to see, because the product ID's color was also black. So it will directly redirect to me there. And finally, we observe there is one word called exact. Whenever I don't use this exact, what happens is, even if I give any other routing parts also, it should produce me only the particular page. Now let us suppose I have something like this. Let me create one component here again. It will help us understand better. I'm sorry. Now, if inside this list, again I am creating a UL, Okay. So this unordered list now consists of one list. Let us suppose I write on. And here I write submenu. We can simultaneously observe that we got our submenu. Now we have to use our link tag as present above to similar manner. Now the actual understanding is after the sublink has to come. So we will define the string in the similar manner itself. Here you can observe there is a slash and then there is a schedule, the same menu. And after that, I name it as submenu. All right. Let's close this. Just give me a moment. I have to place this submenu in between this. Let us do one thing. Something went wrong in this particular line. Let's take help of this. Now let me use this itself. I'll it as submenu. After my schedule, it has to appear, and here we will write this as submenu. So now this link is ready. And what we can do is we can navigate to our routes. And now I have to explain this, how to create a child route. So in your route, either you can create its child component or you can directly create your route. Give a path. Schedule and your submenu, same string which you have given in the header, and relate this path to the component it has to render. Component is submenu. And the one thing we have to do is we have to create this component also. We can do that by adding a new file. Name that as submenu.js. All right. Now the new component is created. Now let us copy this structure and utilize this here. Instead of schedule, it is sub menu here. And you can have this, it's not a problem. And you have to export this not to use them in all the places you need. Let's just save this. So the same, we can use same component in our header. Save this also. Yeah, of course, you need to import this here in order to use it. Simple. Here it is only in the single line, so we need only single slash. And if it is suppose in other folders, you have to follow the same absolute links. So here you have your submenu. Fetch from here itself. Save. So if we observe, we have our component now. The submenu component is ready, and in your header you have defined the link where it has to display in your view, and then in your main JS you have written the route how it has to display your browser URL. Now let us go to submenu. If you observe in the URL, it is giving, please observe the cursor here. So it is giving schedule slash submenu. And whenever I go to schedule, it will display only schedule. So it is always recommended to use exact keyword so that it will show you the relevant page exactly. Okay. Once I remove this exact keyword, you can observe the changes. It doesn't stand in the exact page. Alright? So that is the reason why you have to use this exact keyword. Now it is showing the exact URL which you are into. Previously it was showing the home page by default. It was not showing each of the exact routes. So I hope everyone understood this concept. And we have to be careful with switch also. Without switch, this particular component will not load in the same page. They will start loading as a different pages. So this keyword is important keyword which will help you in single page application. So that is the important concept. I hope now you all understood how to create a route with the help of switch keyword after installing your npm React router. Okay, and then we need to install this library in whichever place you are going to use this particular library, and then only it will start working. And you're clear how to define your navigation menu as usual in your HTML, but the only difference you do here is the link tag which you are going to use, and define your string here, the exact string being utilized in your path also. So I hope everyone is clear with this concept. Is there anything which any of you wish to ask me or wish to clear about browser URL concept and other React route components? We will see soon. Shall I proceed further? Any one participant can help me.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. So now let me stop this coding and we will shift to our PPT and check out what is the next content we have to cover. If I enter into my PPT, we can see why we are using this browser routers. So there is a lot of different versions of React routing because many developers have found what has to be added into the present this one. So, okay. One of our participant has requested to briefly summarize it. I will use my this one itself to briefly summarize it. This, I hope this is comfortable. If not, please let me know if I have to switch to the program also. Now, what we have actually observed is whenever in this figure, if you observe, there is wherever my cursor is present, please observe. There is a local host 8080 and there are some slashes and there is a URL. So, and there is a page reload also. I will take use of this pointer. So now if you see this URL, so there is a way to represent particular page and this is the reload option. Once I reload, my entire DOM is again created. That is the entire HTML, whichever you are representing, either as a HTML itself or as a JSX or as a whatever XML or whatever we are using, XML or XHR also. What happens is entirely it loads and again it creates the object model. So that's the reason we understand that in a very big web application which has n number of data, you can say thousands of data or even lakhs of data also are available in few of the websites. So it has to render every data again once it functions with this particular reload option. In your traditional pages, what happens is the entire DOM gets updated. That is, the view also gets updated, and as well as the data also gets updated. So you understand how difficult it is to maintain such server rendering and even client rendering also. So not to avoid all these consequences, we have SAP, single page application. The concept of single page application is mainly achieved with the help of React router itself. When you observe this URL, you can understand that this particular page, there are two other components also. Apart from dashboard, which is the default component, there are two other components also. So when you load this particular profile, it should not reload this entire page. Instead, it should only reload the profile page because this is a separate component. So it should only reload this particular page. So what happens in this entire structure? It has to display the profile content, create or update only this part of DOM. And this is structured very smoothly with the help of concept of Flux Architecture. We name this individual change as atom. It is represented in this part. And when you have more atoms, we call it as molecules, the terminology is equal to your chemistry. So this is what happens. Okay.
Yes, please mute
So
yourself,
if
all of
you
you.
observe in your accounts or session also, the same thing has to happen. this particular change, whichever you are doing, it has to consider this as an atom or as a molecule. That is the number of changes in that particular component. And only that part of the DOM should get updated. It is in this manner. Each change inside your virtual DOM, let us suppose, is something like this. All right. There are three things, right? Dashboard, profile, and accounts. So now I load this profile means only this part of the DOM should get updated. It should not disturb the entire page. So that is the concept. So in order to achieve that, what we will do is we will create our home component, our accounts component, our profile component, and we use the React Router npm package where you have route to define the path. All right. So for this particular component, you define its path. That part we have seen in the coding. If you're comfortable, I will shift to code itself so that you can understand exactly what's happening. So if you observe, so we have used route to do that part, and then we have used the path and its related component is called inside this tag. So these are the things which will help this particular route to understand that this is the component which you have to show when you click upon that particular route. Apart from that, it will update your browser URL also relative to the path which you have been defined. And in this way, a browser is the page which is named. It is easy to define its keyword also with the help of search engine optimization. So these are the few things which we have to remember. Initially, you should have a component and you should know what are all the things you want to include in your navigation. And once you have laid out your navigation, you should understand how to define your routes, whether they are exact pages or whether they are sub pages, in whatever manner you want. But the thing which you observe here is you can define only the path and its relative component. Is it clear, everyone? So shall we proceed to the next concept?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Again, I'm entering into the PPT. We were in the concept of browser URL. Give me a moment, yes. So this is the, sorry. Okay. So this is the browser router, which we understand how to keep the declarative UI approachable to whatever sync is happening within the URL. And next, why browser routers is the very important thing which you have to understand, why the existing packages has to implement this. You can see that there are different routers. One is browser router, right? The other one is hash router, and the other one is memory router. The next is static router. Apart from this, also programmers who have invented the React router or the ReactJS library itself, they have given many other routers also. But these are the four common things which you have been using and which we have to understand exactly about a React router. So now what happens is users of HTML5 version has some states which you have to render during while you sync with your UI and your particular URL. The structure of HTML5 which we have taken will help you understand how to create absolute links of each page which is going to render. Now what we have made this even more approachable is in the form of JSX. So once it is rendered as your JSX, that is creating your declaration. Not achieve
Madam,
that,
voice
we
problem, ma'am.
have browser. Now hash router, already we have seen in the initial, is the voice clear now?
Madam, voice problem, madam.
Okay. Just give me
Network problem, ma'am. I hope.
Yes, sir. There must be network problem, but Wi-Fi is running. This is a fluctuating network issue. So, but I will see that I cover everything which I want to share. Okay. Let us again get into the PPT. So this way we have to understand all the things which you have useful. Now the hash portion of the URL you keep in sync with URL as we do with UI, declarative UI. Sorry. I thought it was in pointer. I'm sorry. So in a similar manner, now window.location.hash, this will help you to not to get navigated to empty pages and stay exactly with the page you want to render as per your URL being declared in your route or your router or whichever component you are using. So this is the meaning of window.location.hash. The memory router, what the help which it does, it will keep the history of the URL in the memory, and that is it will store the URL of each page, okay, and whichever we have, and it will create the history of the navigated things. It doesn't read or write on the address bar, it will just only keep on the information. So non-browser environments like React Native, which we will see in the last session. React Native, the main concept here is there are different devices where you have to view the application. For each device, previously we used to create different applications. That is for your Android phone, for your iPhone, and for other websites and all. You have to create 3 different applications or even 4 different applications depending upon the client requirement. So when you do, there is a lot of expenditure and as well as the implementation of the work, and the final thing which you have to see is the data being rendered to all these 3 devices should be same for a particular user. Now let us suppose there is a user Ramesh. He is buying something from the website of Amazon. Then whenever he switches his account in the iPhone, he should find the same information. If he switches his account in the Android phone, he should find the same information. And the same has to happen when he opens the application in the website. So in order to maintain all these 3 databases was an hectic issue. Even though it was achievable, there were few constraints and few hardcomes which you have to overcome. So that's the reason why React Native has come into play. The next and final, which we have to understand, is static router, a router that never changes your location. That is the useful for server-side rendering scenario, it will understand what is the exact change in that particular location and it will give you the exactly actual changes. What are the actual changes to be implemented? So this type of rendering is very, very important. Now, next, browser router is the important one which we are going to analyze. As we have seen in our examples also already, how the single slash and followed, the single slash is the page which has to appear whenever initially the web application renders. The application itself. Okay, this is the starting page. That is, this is the first page which you view. And thereafter, whatever you have declared, depending upon that, it will open the page. So this part we are clear about. And React Router, you understood how it helps in client-side routing to achieve the single page application field and like more. So it's a easier share link, and this is how it goes. And load the component, you can get whatever the sub menus are which has to interact. And this part, let us suppose there are some thousands of blankets. So for this thousands of blankets to represent in a web page, I can't go with each one naming them. Yes, if I have to show blanket 1, I have to name it as blanket 1 in the URL. And if I have to show the blanket 2 page, I have to name that as blanket 2 in the URL. So this is going to be a hectic issue, and this is not the way you manage your database. So not to achieve such functionalities, I mean such views, what we have to do is you have to name all these blankets and increment them with the help of numbering concept and give them as an ID. So each blanket has its own ID, and whenever you want to render the page of particular blanket, it will get updated with the help of this ID. So this is the concept over here, which is very, very important while you create your web application. So here I end my React Router. There are other concepts also, interesting concepts of React Router. But that part we will see in the second session. Now we have to proceed with React and Redux part. So we will be proceeding with React and Redux. Meanwhile, you can post anything which you want to ask. Meanwhile, you can post me your doubts or you can ask me if you have any. I'm just opening my PPT. Right. Now let us enter into the actual game of React, that is React and Redux. So React and Redux is a very important topic according to what you are achieving in the single page application itself again. And the one more concept which you can see in React is it is the binding of the data, which they say is in only one way. If you observe previously, you can see that there are few frameworks like Angular and Angular JS and other frameworks which support two-way data binding. Now, let me explain what is this one-way data binding and two-way data binding. In order to do that, I'll make use of Paint. So what happens here is you can observe meanwhile, let us understand why React exactly. If you see, you can observe in this slide, there are few data which change accordingly. There is different views, different grid views where there are different data. And all these data have been rendered in your view. This particular data is from some model, and from that model, we are able to fetch this data here. I hope everyone is able to follow me. If some way you feel difficulty to follow or you didn't understand, you can interrupt. So the React design concept, it's not a framework, it's just a library. The difference between a framework and library was seen in the first session itself by Surya Narayana sir. But still, I would like to highlight one point here so that we can be in a flow. So library is just the required number of things or functionalities which you write. A framework itself compromises a number of packages. And these packages, it's a compromises of n number of libraries. So it's a complete scenario of what you want to follow or achieve. And one of the most common example is Angular. And Angular supports MVV architecture, whereas JavaScript supports and ReactJS supports only model view controller architecture. So we will soon see the differences also. And the use of reusable and composable stateful components is present in React. And how this is achieved with the help of our Redux also we will be seeing. And there is a nature of reactive updates also. And virtual representation of views in the memory. This is the important point. Virtual representation of views in the memory, that is your virtual DOM, which creates a tree constellation. So the keyword which we have to actually use is tree reconciliation. That is, the entire tree structure of the DOM is never disturbed. Only the necessary part of the branch is disturbed. So if you observe here, I have used my arrow function to create this to-do items where I have an li, and inside that, if we observe, I have a given key which is equal to, there you find some kind of variable like thing, to-do.id. Let me take a point. So this is your to-do.id. So this part, what happens is it acts like a dynamic variable. Okay. And this is the part where your view is binding, right? This is the where in your view. So view, I hope everyone understand view. View is what we see our user interface, the page which we see in our browser. Okay. So here I am binding some data inside my view, and this data has to appear in that particular li. You can see I have two data, one is ID and another one is text. So this both things should appear in my list. And this list, I can create any number of lists with the help of my functionality I write. And the logic is you have to directly put into some iteration to up to how many LIs I have to create, and to those created LIs, what are all the next data you have to assign. That happens with this binding. So this part is clear. Right? If you observe in your virtual DOM, this single thing, we name this as, we name this as active. And now these two things form a molecule. And then finally, what you have to re-render is only the computed difference. There is a state change, and then there is a computed differences once the state has been changed. Let us suppose there is a data being updated at the back end. There are two different places in the view, the same data being posted. If you observe in Amazon websites, what happens is you can find the name of the product in two different places. Now, let us suppose in that product page, I have changed the name of the product to something else like Samsung M2M new edition. Let us suppose that same change has to appear in the two places in the view. So this is your compute difference. Then you have to render this same, and this is where the virtual DOM actually functions. The next what we have to understand is our Redux. Before going into the exact explanation of the code, I would like to explain two things, which is very, very important. One is the Flux architecture. Because of that only Redux concept or the Redux module has come. Previously, it was only the Redux concept. Now you have a separate module for Redux. and how you have to bind your data with the help of Redux is one of the ways. Apart from Redux also, there are other ways to bind your data. So this, and why Redux is because of Flux architecture, and why Flux architecture is because React implements Flux architecture. So let us see the architecture first. Let me open the architecture. Just give me a moment. Now, what is this Flux architecture is all about? Before going into the Flux architecture, let me take you to the paint to explain the concept. So we have the paint here. So what we are going to do here is, I hope you all understand two things we have. The first thing which we have is MVC. All right. Sorry, it's not increasing the size. Just give me one moment. I have opened too many things, so it's okay. Okay. Now select this size. There is another concept called MVV. This is model view controller, and this particular thing is model view and view model. So now what happens exactly in model view controller is, you understand there is a view and there is a model. In order to pass the data between a view and model, you have a controller. So this is the concept. We have the diagram also. We will soon check into that also. And when you come to model view and view model controller, what happens exactly here is, you observe that there is something between model and view, and there is other thing happen between view and model. In this initial stage, we can see that there is single binding, that is the data is going from model to view. And here if you observe, here if you observe, the data is going from model to view. This is the usual thing which happens. Whatever data you want to bind from your database, you take it to your view. Okay, that is your UI. And when you come here, we understand that in your view, that is in your UI, in your user interface, that is in your page, if you are changing any data, that gets updated in your model. This is the interesting concept, and both these architecture have their own advantages and disadvantages. If you observe this model view controller, the single way binding helps you to organize and keep your data, and helps you in development and as well as debugging. And when their data models are in few hierarchies also, this is the best option, model view controller, because you should not disturb your data from the view, which will disturb the entire model organization of the data. And similarly, when you come to MVVM, what happens here is the first part is okay. When you come to the second part, that is when the other part is happening. This is one-way binding. Only from model to view, the data is going. This is known as one-way binding. I'm sorry. This is known as one-way binding. And when we observe this, there is change from model to view and as well as view to model. So this is two-way. That's the action is happening in the both the ways. This is two-way binding. Okay. So now you understand how hectic it is when data is being updated in your view and that data has to update it in your model. This becomes really very, very hectic to develop, maintain, okay, and test also. Can't test in this manner, right? And also to debug. Fine. Of course, there are advantages of such architecture, and this type of architecture, the advantages are utilized when you really want to update your user interface, and that is Angular. There are more number of reactive forms, so that is the use. And now, what we are going to achieve is only model view controller, single way binding, which is the concept of our ReactJS, and this particular architecture is implemented in Flux architecture with even more clarity. This is implemented in the Flux architecture, and there are few things which you have to observe in that. And now let us go to that diagram. Sorry. Give me 1 minute. Meanwhile, the architecture opens. Let's understand few things of Redux. The URL displayed in the address bar always helps you to understand in what particular binding of data you are present, that is in what particular component and model you are present. Give me 1 minute. It's taking some time. The unidirectional data flow provides predictability. That is the one way of data binding provides you some sort of predictability. And the maintenance is also easy. You understand that the flow of the data is one way and you can easily organize your data entity models, and all this becomes very, very flexible. The next point is, when you start working with your React in a unidirectional data flow manner, that particular architecture exactly fixes into your Flux architecture, and Facebook, Netflix, the packages whichever, sorry, the applications whichever implement React.js will use the Flux module. Previously, it was only Flux architecture, and now we have Flux module also. And Redux is one of the most implemented feature of Flux architecture. And we can say that with the help of Redux module only, we are able to utilize the full-fledged Flux architecture. And you can dispatch an action or put into a property object, like wherever you have an view, and then you have an action upon the view, that part action which you do in your UI, that is clicking a button or clicking something, image or something, whatever is in your declarative UI or in your page, what is that? It is actually an action. An action is being sent to some dispatcher that will dispatch a particular action to your controller. And that controller, what it does is, it will see which model to subscribe in order to fetch the data and submit it. Let us suppose I have entered my username and password. Now finally what I will do, I'll try to log in. When I click on that particular button, login, my page has to open with my profile. Yes. So this entire action will happen with the help of Redux Connect. And of course, if you are using Redux, you can use any other thing, packages also. But right now we are interested only in Redux. So now what happens, this is the necessary feature or necessary containers will get uploaded along with the Redux Connect, and the Redux provider, whichever has to store, and apart from the container, it will store the child containers also. And sorry, it will provide all the necessary details into that also. And another concept is their reducer. We will see that also. The concepts which we are going to cover in Redux are action, dispatcher, subscriber, reduce, and Redux Connect, and Redux combined reducers also. So these are the things which we are going to see today. Let me take you to the link of the architecture. This particular architecture you can see in the development page of Facebook also. So we must have mentioned the importance over there. And today we are interested only in using the.
Madam, show the screen, ma'am.
1 second, sir. So it is not opening. Give me 1 minute. Directly take it from Facebook. Yes. So this is the Flux support, and you have the reference architecture and everything inside this, and as well as you have the data model which you have to follow. Exact thing which we are interested is architecture. Actually, you can find the architecture here, but unfortunately, I'm not finding the architecture here. Okay. Let me help you. One second. Hmm. I'm sorry. Just give me one moment, please. Yes. Let me share this itself. Now, what actually happens here is you have an MVC architecture where you can find an action, and there is a controller which will handle this action. It will go to the particular model wherever the data is present, and it will render in the view. In order to allow view to trigger any changes in the any model also, it is possible in such type of architecture. But what we are actually interested is not in that. We are interested only in our, I hope this is clear. We are interested only in the way the Flux architecture works. The Flux architecture simplifies the data flow, and it flows not only in one direction, but also it maintains a store. As you can observe here, it maintains a store, and it will help you to work from this particular store itself. Okay, let me explain. Now, suppose in your view, you want to click into this particular graph and observe the statistics of that page. At that time, it is an action. So this action will be sent to a dispatcher. Dispatcher is someone who will carry the request and send it to the particular model, and that particular model subscribes it. Now, meanwhile, what happens is this is stored in your store. And once it is subscribed, then it is rendered to your view. We can see the detail here. This is using your Redux data library. Now this architecture is implemented with the help of Redux. Yes, of course, Flux architecture is implemented with the help of Redux. These two terms are interchangeable in this ReactJS. Now what happens is, let us understand exactly. There is a request and all these requests are written in the form of APIs. And once there are utilities created, that is different post, get, request services are created, and at that point you create action creators. Now what happens is, whenever there is a view triggered for a particular action, there's a view trigger for a particular action, at the time a dispatcher is generated. Now this dispatcher has callbacks for the store which it creates, and the change of events and the store queries are stored here. Whatever updations are there in the query is stored here. And once it is sorted out from the model, you can see in the React view, and finally that is delivered to the user interaction. So this is the Flux architecture, and the action triggers the dispatcher, which will trigger the store, and finally it will render in the view, as I explained you previously. Now, can anyone explain me, or can anyone highlight the point, exact difference between the way MVC is handling the data and the way the Flux architecture is handling it? There is only one difference. If possible, please. Sorry. I would request participants to please help me with this. I just want a help from you so that we can analyze that we have exactly understood what is the usage of dispatcher and store, especially. Action creators are also present in MVC, but the special work is done between dispatcher and store. We all understood what dispatcher is doing, how it is carrying the request, and what store is creating, and how it is rendering into the view. This part we all understood. But there is only one single difference in this MVC architecture and as well as this Flux architecture. Can any of the participants help me in highlighting the point? Apart from one-way data binding, there is something else in Redux architecture. I just want that one word. Okay, so the exact difference here is, apart from one-way data binding, the data which goes, okay, the data which goes into the view is also unidirectional. It will go in only one directional, because once the request has been called, it is a dispatcher, right? It will go directly to do its one-way action only. So the unidirectional thing is the one thing included in the Flux architecture. Now let us go to the PPT again and see the coding part. So in order to achieve Redux, we need Redux data library, which is having DX and as well as reducer composition. They say it as reducer and as well, yes, reducer and as well as reducer composition. These are two things. And apart from that, you have Redux Connect. Connect will wrap any component and map the certain parameters of the application of whatever store it has for that model, and then it will. So each of these you have to define an action, and then you have to represent. This is the PowerPoint. sorry, I was in the PowerPoint. Okay. So now we have used the concept of properties here. And yesterday, Vijay Kumar sir has concepts of properties. Before moving into that part, we will understand what we are going to render is a div which has one heading, and in the second heading you can see the property being binded. Okay. So it is showing the local date and time. So in order to do that, what is the first thing you have to do is you have to create your own property and this state is taking the date and defining a new date from the date component. And you can also set time interval, and this is done with component did mount, and unmount will give you the clearance to the interval with the help of timer ID. Okay, this is the functionalities which we are going to do in this particular program. Next, now we will understand in what will help us. So when you define a component, it is just a constitution part, an ingredient. That is a place to put everything. That is what they have defined in this. When we say react as a word by meaning itself, it is a verb. So it will force or influence or stimulate or given direction or reverse direction or influence whatever the ingredients are present. Now, Redux. Redux is what will help you to bring back things. That is to the actual meaning of Redux is itself bringing back. So whatever the let us say the action has been already given with the help of React, and you try to bring back that particular action, whichever you are going to trigger. This is not necessary. System got stuck. Just give me one moment, please. Okay. So Netflix also implements Redux and Flux architecture. And whenever you observe that there are different Yes, I'm sorry, my Zoom got stuck. And now let us proceed into the coding part of this Redux. Let us see one example, how Redux container can be created and in what way Redux container helps us. Let us move to that part quickly. Sir, Surya Narayana sir. Sir, can you help me providing?
Madam,
Yes, sir.
tell me, madam.
Sir, can you provide me host?
Yeah, ayo, sorry. It's, yeah, madam.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, I made you host, madam.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is this part we have to cover? This is the actual flow. I'm extremely sorry, participants. I don't know why my PowerPoint is stucking. I'm really sorry. Now also it is not responding. Oh, just responds within 2 seconds. Wonderful. So this is the exact Redux flow where you can see there are action creators and these carry dispatch and they will go to the callback functionality provided by your node. Sir, can I continue with the content itself? Is it okay?
Yeah.
Because I don't know why the PowerPoint is stucking and I'm
Wow.
unable to share the slides. So I request you all to
Otherwise, take a few minutes, madam. No problem. Let the PowerPoint problem get rectified.
no, sir, I have content. Can I continue with the content itself?
Yes, 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 madam. Yes, madam.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you. This is our content which we have framed for ourselves. It is written directly by the developer of Redux himself. So now what we are trying to do is we are trying to develop a page which is exactly looking like Netflix. There are only two pages which we are going to concentrate on. The grid layout, that is something like this. This we say as a grid layout, and in this grid you can see there are in the two rows. Okay, the first row has 5 sessions. You can name them as columns, and each one has categorized features, that is the show which it has to represent. And similarly in the second row also you find the exact 5 sessions, each one having its own feature to represent. Now whenever you click on the particular post of this page, now let us suppose you are clicking on Avengers, the page about the description of Avengers will open. And here I think they are clicked on Pirates of Caribbean, so that description is being displayed. Now, this is the way you have to organize yourself. If you see, this is a URL where you are seeing the pages of movies. And as soon as you click on particular movie, it is redirecting to the movie / number, that is your number 2. And in this grid, the number 2 is given for this feature film. And so it is representing the description of that itself. This one. So the details of the movie are shown when you click on its poster. So in order to do the best practices among the React components with this style, let me explain the actual way of organizing. First, you have to see your normal components present, where you create your movies view, that is movie folder for individual movie view component. That part you can do with app folder for the layouts. You have to organize your app, you have to organize your movie page, and you have to organize your movies. And the file that combines the reducer and composer and expose them will come here. Soon I will explain you what is this reducers also. And there is an entry point for the project that defines the Redux provider with the reducer, that is your index.js. This is usual entry point and as well as the usual entry point for Redux also. And here if you observe, there is a movie data in the movies JSON. See, data. From here only we are able to view those posters or view the details about the posters. And then as usual you have your routes, React router, as we have seen already. And then you have movies folder, that's a grid, those styles, and this we have already seen. And one of the word which you always observe in this React is Webpack. So what this Webpack is all about, the Webpack will help you to combine all the latest features of JavaScript. And whenever you are importing a utility or a package or whatever you have to import, either from the concepts of JS or EC, MCA or ES, in all these, what happens is each time you have to import these subcomponents also or the subcontainers also. So in order to reduce those imports, we usually install Webpacks. So this is the structure with which we are going to work with our project. And you can also create the same structure under source or component folders, and already you have your app.js. For that you can create your CSS. and you have to create a movie folder and movies folder where you have its own JS and its own CSS. And then you have to also include your JSON data from where you're going to take this. And then the dependencies or the unnecessary configs which you are going to use. As usual, I told you, you have to install this webpack, all the bundle files which you want to use, and then JSON loader and style loader and CSS loader and web loader, which we will do usually at the time of environment setup itself. That part is over. And now what we are going to exactly do is, I have named this project as Redux-Netflix. You can name whatever you want. And there is a simple description given. You can include this description. It's not necessary. You can leave it. Depends upon your wish. And then once you install, you can see how the webpack will concurrently use the tool here. Inside the scripts, we have written start for webpack. You can write compile also for the webpack, which will help you entirely while compiling also. Usually when you install webpack through its npm, you can see the start under your scripts. There is a start, and what happens is it carries the string of the webpack watch configurations, and it will help you to implement the webpack dev server into your project, and you can easily import what are the other libraries you want to. Okay, finally I am saved. Okay. So you can find how once you install the Babel, what happens, and how once you install the other npm scripts, the CSS loader or ESLint, what it happens. So these are the places where you can observe the changes once you install them. Now, the actual part we are interested is React Redux. So once you install, you find your React Redux JS here. Okay, and React Router of course is present here, and apart from that you have Redux and Redux actions to carry on. Okay, so these are your Redux reducers present. So this is the important part where we are going to achieve the entire view exactly like Netflix. So what I have done is, as usual, I have given a require path which you used to give, and apart from that, you will be given this by default once you have implemented the component. Okay. So now you can see that there is a specific output folder, the path.join. Wherever the name is given, you can apply that. This is the exact architecture where you will find the different ways how to connect the JSON file. So this loader will help you to load the JSON whichever you have included in your project folder, and that is getting converted as an array in this part. This is the query processor, and finally you can specify that in your output wherever you want to display it. And apart from that, you have to resolve this using your loaders. In order to enable the Redux which we have installed, you have to create the constants necessary, and you have to use this as a provider. you observe, you have to use this as a provider. And after that, you have to create your store. And then we have reducers also. Okay. Now routes. In the previous session, we have seen how to create routes. In the same manner, we are creating the routes for different components. That is, your default one is app. And then you have movies, and then you have movie. And the only thing which you observe here is there is index route, that is the numbering for particular description page given. And here is the ID by which you give the particular page, and this is the component movie which you will define. And here dynamically each description will be loaded depending upon the data being binded. So this is the part where exactly Redux will help us. So here you can observe already it is highlighted. One second. Already it is highlighted movie /8. This is the 8th number, and this is achieved with the help of this type of route configuration. So while explaining React route, I didn't cover this because I plan to cover this here. So here this is the way you can write route also, and this is dynamically it gets updated. The value, the string value which you usually write for yourself, here it is dynamically getting updated depending upon the component which you are going to click up. So that is the individual movie, and it will include the URL with its ID. Now, exact work of reducer is you have a provider for your store. As you have seen the concept of store, the same can be implemented in the coding with the help of provider. And now this provider will help you to create a store, and where the actual part of reducers and routes will come. Okay. This part of the code will apply reducer, and here you are going to import your reducers. This is already defined once you install your Redux, and you can create its constants wherever necessary. We have seen in the packages that they are already defined. So wherever necessary, you can include them, and you can combine these reducers. There are combined reducers also. What happens is we have already installed Webpack, so it will help you to include all the JavaScripts, either modern or traditional, and it will totally create its own object as usual in the reduce library. And of course, you have to import combined reducers also in order to write the reducers here. So wherever you are exporting your the reducer, you have to write the reducers also there. Don't worry, in the entire code, I will once again explain you. So just don't worry about this part. So now we have written our two constants, fetch movies and fetch movie both. Before that, you can see how spread operator is combine or concatenate all the states which you write in your function. This changes will happen in the certain movie store. It can update. You can see there is fetch movie, and as well as now you export your object to the reducer method using ES6 syntax. Final code using Redux action in your actions which you are going to handle. Okay, handle actions will help in that. Previously, we have defined only these two concepts. Initial state is already defined, and now you can observe this here. Action object, you can touch this, and then similarly, you have for movie action. Here there is an S. This we have written for movies, and this is movie. And now this reducer variable which we have defined already with the help of reducer. Now we are going to handle the actions which we have to do. This all the action for movies, that is entirely displayed in movies, and here this action will display the particular movie only. So it gets the current movie in the movie component by using the index, that is the URL parent for movie ID. Now, another important concept is URL param for movie ID, which is very important concept, and we will see utilize this to exactly use the data while local storage and while session storage. This is a very interesting concept also. We will see the end. Now what we are interested is how you fetch a movie with the action creator and return the action object, and finally you render it in the view. So this is the part where you are exactly implementing Redux, your reducer, and your action. So these all are explanations. So let me skip them. Now, final part is how you connect to your store. How you send all these data to your. You have seen again. We have defined yes, movies component here, and we assign this to this props. What you are rendering will render your movie. Okay. Now, correct. Of course, it is a step-by-step procedure. Initially, we have seen how to create an app, and then we have seen how to create a Redux. We are seeing how to create a store which will exactly help you, and that you can do with the help of provider. And before creating provider, what you have to do is you have to export your connect, first declare your connect. Okay, this you can see, you take it from React Redux, and then you connect it to whichever component you want, movies exactly, and then you use that module. This is so you feel like you are lost, but we have to keep in mind the architecture exactly. Yes, there is an action, and after an action, your dispatcher is passed, which is the functionality which will get done by your Redux itself, and you find a reducer, and then you create your own store with the help of providers present, and then finally you are going to render that in your view with the help of
Madam, am I audible?
this URL. There is nothing you can observe after Sir,
Tell me,
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can you?
host, yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So let us see one simple example where we implement our Redux. So this is the common pages which you have to create, and in that first let us see what's in our Redux store. We have written the action types. We have written the configuration store as usual. From action dispatch go to store, and then you have your index as usual. This is the place where it initially triggers your Redux. That you can observe here. I've written here root reducer. So this is using your combined reducers from Redux, and this is the place where it actually initializes the working of Redux. And next you have Redux written for your product actions, and then for your product reducers also. Okay, so let me just explain you the file structure, then in detail I will explain you each one of them also. So if you observe here, we have created two pages. One is for the product and another one is for the product list. So here you will have the product name, code, and description. This example is similar to the movies part. And now here you can observe there is common things, that is your header, which will have the navigation as usual, and then you will have the individual pages. One is about and another one is home. And of course product links and product form pages you have here. So if you observe here in your output, this is your home page. Then when you go to your products page, you have your URL being updated. So already routes have been written, and then you have the form to submit here. As soon as you submit the data here, you get your product list developed, and there is some about which will have some information. That's it. Now let us try this. Let us understand what are the test scenarios. So I give my product something like this. You can give whatever is needed. Okay. Let me do something like this, and then I just submit it. Once I submit it, you can find them in the list here. Now, we have to understand one thing. This form is a separate component, and as well as this product list is a separate component. And both you are able to view in the one route products. So now we have understood what is the exact thing going to happen, and we have to also understand the home page clearly. Here you have your target written to where there is a paragraph, and as well as there is a heading. So this is just a link target given. Just skip that, and you know this is the about page structure written. All right, and the other thing is the form being created here. In this part only we are going to exactly use our Redux. So you understand that my view has to represent only unidirectional data, even though I am entering in my UI itself. So it has to update only in one direction. So let us see what are the things I am going to take. First is I have to create an action, and then I need a store. Okay, store we must have written in reducers and configure stores, and then I need connect. Connect from React Reduce is very, very important. So yesterday we have seen how to create a state. In that I am creating my product ID, name and code and description. Then in your render, as usual, your render, will have your declarative UI. In your render, I'm creating the form. Okay, this is not only your entire JSX, but it is also your data being binded in unidirectional way. This is the part we are interested in, that how we are writing our action, store, implementing, reducer, and connect. So this is the important part. And then you have your list. Now the list is a table where the data is binded. Whenever you see a flower-like brace, okay, and a variable name in your UI, you can understand that this is a data binding and this is one-way data binding, of course. So now we have taken the help of map in order to display the products exactly from your JSON. And then this part you understood, right? Now that another thing which we have to understand is these are few functions we have written in order to store our targets and as well as states depending upon the action we do. One is your submit form. As usual, you take your props and actions to submit the state in whichever function you have written, that is add product. This is the function you have written. And set state is for your on changes, whichever changes you are doing. Okay. Now let us understand here. There is a array, products array here, which is reduced. And to combine them, you have your action for each data which is present in the array. And you have your next component is map state to props and then map dispatch to props. So these two by default you export them in order to use them in the product form. You can understand the way it is written, export default, and this you observe this is written inside your connect. So that is the important feature you have to understand. Inside your each function, you have to return the state and as well as the action. This is the place where you write your action. Now, participants, please understand, whenever I say action, I mean what are the dispatch to be created. And when you create your dispatch, you will be obviously using your action from your Redux, and where product action and the particular dispatch is being introduced. Now let me explain you how it exactly works. Okay. All right. In your action types.js, you have created already the necessary actions. You can see for add product and for delete product. So you have to add a product is one action and you have to delete the product is one of the action. All right. Next, you have your store. Okay, this is the store. And what is the purpose of the store? It has to write a callback to your action. That is, it has to initialize your state and it has to implement Redux middleware here. Okay, so this is the particular way you create your store, your root reducer and as well as your initial state and as well as this particular application of your middleware. You can see here Redux immutable state invariant. This you are importing from your Redux itself, and this is your root reducer. Okay, this is the thing which we have created already. And then from Redux, we are trying to import create store and apply your middleware and then compose. So these things will help you. Okay, see, if you observe the comment, add support for Redux development soup. So this is a composer which will help you. You have created its component, and then for that you are trying to apply your Redux middleware with the help of your this package, Redux immutable state variant. So this is actually configuration store, okay, and we don't usually change it. And in your index, you are exporting your root reducer. And here you observe that you have only imported combined reducers. This is the initialization of your Redux. And then for your actions, you have to write for functionality for adding a product and deleting a product. And when you observe, what it has to return is again the functionality of Redux itself, that the types which you have written for add product and as well as delete product. These variables you remember we have written in action types, and the same you have to utilize here in order to pass the type of action whichever you want for the particular product. And that is the place where you can view the rendering clearly. And come to reducer. Reducer is the place where your actions have been reduced. You can observe how we are writing. We are writing in a simple syntax manner, passing a string type for the action, either add or delete, which is already defined. And then that particular will be passed from your UI, and once it matches, it will take the particular state and produce the particular action for the product. So we have written only for add product. In the similar manner, you can write a case for delete product also, and you can implement that too. Now let me copy the same structure and just change, instead of add product, I will be calling delete product. Okay, all right. All right. So in this place, now you can add the action of delete product. You can see it is automatically giving me the preferences. So I choose from them. I've introduced delete product also. So whenever in my view, if I update this delete product, it will perform the action of delete. And finally, if there is no variable of
Increase the font size.
Then it will. Yes, sir. 1 second, sir.
Still some more.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay. 1 second, sir. Yes, sir. Now this is the way you have written your reducer, and now let us check into our UI again. See here by default, you include your link part of your router, and next what we have to do is go to our header. There you can find home, products, and about. Now in this products table, we can include another column to delete that particular list. You can do with the help of action which is written delete product. So now let us move to product list. Here in this table, we can include one more header
what we do here is we write our delete product. And to that same, you have to do the data binding. Now, here exactly what you have to do is you need not bind your properties, but you have to bind your action. So let us analyze that part, and I am just giving you a delete for now. No. Let us proceed and write the functionality. In your action, already delete is defined. Delete product is the constant. And in your reducer, okay, not the same. We have defined here how to export this delete product component. And in your reducer, okay, I have defined in the action also, and as well as in the reducer also. So now go to product form, and here okay. Whenever there is a submit, it is submitting the product, and under that itself I write delete product this way. And once this event is triggered, then same arrow function we are using. Okay. As you will go with your reducers and with this props. You have to add action and give delete product that has to return delete. Now go to the definition. Even you can give direct delete also, this manner also. Finally, we are producing the product list here. Whenever I say delete, it has to delete my entire product. So I'm going to use this same button in my table. Here the type will be button. And this will be delete. Now let us check by giving some product. Fruits of the season is the description I gave. Okay, it is unable to define this. We can write in some other manner also. Take it as input also. Type button. Input, we have changed it to type button, and we can do the same functionality. So let me enter some dummy data in order to process this form. Something like this. Okay, no problem if it is not accepting any of these input fields also. We can directly bind our functionality here. You can directly bind the functionality here, whichever we have written. Delete